This is crazy, you guys. It says Elon Musk. Okay. This is not something on the chessboard, so they will be quite surprised. Lasers from space. And you said finally a focus on the Jewish vote, clearly throwing shade to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Stop scrolling right now. Elon Musk's ex just went on a far-left podcast and seriously claimed that Donald Trump won the election because Elon used 10,000 secret space lasers to rig the vote. The absolute delusion here is genuinely stunning.
I have over 10,000 lasers in space.
So he doubles down and
now.
quantifies the number of lasers, which is very comparable to the number of satellites he has. But then what's very interesting is I say, if this ends up being the reason, Trump wins, and he puts 100. And then I said,
he does the 100 emoji.
Yes. And I said, I would ask more, but I don't want to be deposed. And he says, why? So, there's all these people like, what did he do with the election? I don't know. Ask him.
So here's where my stance was on it, Ashley.
Wait, did you actually listen to how incredibly insane this logic is? She is literally sitting on a mainstream podcast making the exact same wild conspiracy claims that the left spent the last 4 years mocking conservatives for. She unironically claims that Elon Musk used a fleet of satellites as, quote, space lasers to somehow rig the American voting system. And she's using a completely unverified text exchange full of 100 emojis as her definitive proof. Notice how the podcast host doesn't even challenge her on it. She just blindly accepts it because it fits her anti-Trump narrative. This completely exposes the massive double standard in modern media. If a conservative makes any claim about election integrity, they are instantly labeled a dangerous threat to democracy and deplatformed. But when a bitter ex goes on a progressive show and casually claims the election was stolen by literal space lasers, she is treated as a brave whistleblower. It is absolute, unfiltered political theater designed purely to generate rage clicks.
Want to see what 1 million of your taxpayer dollars just went to? Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's Office of LGBTQ Advancement, which is holding a trans period pride event at a local public library, where they will discuss menstrual equity and the experiences of trans menstruators. And yeah, this is a real thing. Oh, and dinner will be catered, and attendees will be given free period underwear at this free event, paid for by taxpayers, where they will talk about how biological women still menstruate even when they think they're men.
Listen incredibly closely to how your tax dollars are currently being spent. The mayor of Boston has literally diverted $1 million of taxpayer funding to host a trans period pride event at a public library. They are catering a massive dinner and handing out free underwear using the exact same tax revenue collected from working-class citizens who are currently struggling just to buy groceries. This is the absolute peak of progressive bureaucratic bloat. It has absolutely nothing to do with basic municipal governance. When the city infrastructure is crumbling and everyday Americans are being crushed by inflation, the political establishment decides that throwing lavish, hyper-niche gender theory parties on the taxpayer dime is their ultimate priority. The sheer arrogance required to demand that everyday citizens fund this level of radical ideological programming is exactly why people are fleeing these deep blue cities in record numbers. They are actively burning public funds on political activism while completely ignoring the core responsibilities of a functioning city.
How racist is the movement?
It's pretty racist.
That's what I mean. I think it's just, would you say that's at the epicenter of it?
I have texts from Stephen Miller where he's like, we need white boy November. Oh, yeah.
You have texts from Stephen Miller?
He used to text me every day during the election. He's like, share this. Every time I've seen him, he's sitting down at the board with a drink. So, don't know.
But what would he text you? We need what?
White boy November. He's like, we need the white boys. This is going to be white boy November. Like, he's just a loser. And so, he's begging me for retweets. He's like, we need to get the men to
hold on.
vote.
So that guy is reaching out to you to reach.
Oh, yeah. I think they're just hateful racists. I think that what bonds them together is hate and that they weren't cool in high school. They're really, these people are so deeply insecure.
Look at the aggressive pivot she makes here. When she is actively pressed for actual evidence that the MAGA movement is racist, her immediate default is to claim that Stephen Miller texted her about White Boy November. She has absolutely no concrete proof, no screenshots displayed, just wild anecdotal claims meant to smear half the country as hateful and deeply insecure. Notice the incredibly condescending tone. She literally reduces the entire conservative voter base to people who weren't cool in high school. This is the exact elitist, mean girl mentality that actively drives everyday working class voters directly into the populist movement. Instead of debating actual border policy, economics, or government overreach, the progressive strategy is simply to pathologize their political opponents. They cannot comprehend why millions of Americans reject their radical agenda, so they are forced to invent this bizarre narrative that everyone who disagrees with them is just a bitter, uncool loser. It is incredibly revealing of how shallow their actual political platform truly is.
Then I'm financially dependent on this cult. I'm cut off from information because everything is fake news. I'm told not to trust my professors, not to trust anyone except, Twitter and Fox News. And you just get caught up. I explain it in the way that it's not just changing your mind when you want to leave, it's blowing up your entire life because your social circle, your finances, everything is tied to it. So it's very hard to just leave when you get as deep as I did.
Did you catch the massive projection happening right here? She is actively describing conservatism as an oppressive cult that isolates you from society and ruins your career if you leave. But let's look at the actual reality of modern politics. If you are a progressive influencer and you dare to step out of line, if you even mildly question the narrative on gender, border security, or taxation, you are instantly canceled, deplatformed, and completely excommunicated by the political left. The progressive ecosystem is exactly what she is describing, a rigid, unforgiving echo chamber where absolute ideological compliance is mandated. The sheer hypocrisy is staggering. She has literally built her entire new brand and secured massive podcast appearances strictly by turning against the right. Her career wasn't ruined. She was instantly rewarded by the establishment media the very second she started attacking conservatives. She is actively profiting off the exact same victimhood narrative she claims to despise.
And they say so much like, oh, it's not a victimhood mentality. It's not this, it's not that. But they live in the biggest victimhood mentality, that they think the biggest issue is trans people, that they think it's going to take away from them so much if you recognize Black literature. Reading my first slave narrative at 25, I was like, no wonder they don't want me reading this because this is horrific. Yeah. And so and then consuming Black literature, like reading Robinson, reading Du Bois, reading these things that I wasn't allowed to read because I was told it was anti-white propaganda. And just read what you're not supposed to. Read what they're telling you not to.
How racist is the movement?
It's pretty racist.
That's what I think it's just.
Watch how heavily she relies on complete historical fabrication here. She claims that she wasn't allowed to read Black literature, and that conservatives literally forced her to view it as anti-white propaganda. This is pure, absolute fiction, designed entirely to pander to a far-left podcast audience. Nobody in the modern conservative movement is banning adults from reading historical narratives. The actual, real-world debate is strictly about preventing radical, highly sexualized, and racially divisive curriculum from being aggressively forced onto young, impressionable children in taxpayer-funded public schools. But she cannot win that actual debate, so she has to invent a completely fake, oppressive reality where conservatives are actively burning books. This is exactly how the radical left operates. They intentionally misrepresent the conservative argument, construct a massive straw man, and then bravely pretend to defeat it on camera to harvest applause from their echo chamber. It is intellectually bankrupt and entirely dishonest. The political elites and the media will say absolutely anything to maintain the narrative. Hit subscribe, drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.